While I tend to be a minimalist in many areas in my life, I simply don't believe that you can have too many books. I love to read. It's a way to escape, to explore, and to personally converse with people who are long since deceased about the most fundamental and important ideas in the world. We moved into this place like 6 months ago, but it was right before the wedding and everything was pretty chaotic. And so I essentially just put all of my books wherever they could fit. So there's some that are over there, there's a bunch that are behind me back here, and it's been bothering me because there's just no organization to how these books are laid out. And I don't know where anything that I have is. Everything over here in particular is a really big mess. Like there's just no organization at all. This is a children's book my dad wrote. This is a book that I had printed when I was 14. So when I was 14, I made a feature film. And after I finished the feature film, I wanted to make a novelization of the film. And so I wrote down the story in this book, and it might even have a different ending. But yeah, I found a service that would like print books for you. And so I printed out this book and I gave everyone a copy of it for Christmas. So I'm gonna start pulling these down. I'm just gonna start making piles of everything. At an absolute minimum, I want fiction books together and nonfiction books together. The thing I'm realizing the most here is I have a crap ton of books. So all of these ones here are filmmaking books. Poetry, these are like spiritual books. This is just a stack of Malcolm Gladwell books there. These are all novels. It's crazy to think about how much information is just contained. I think this is why I love books so much. Just something as simple as like this book here, 101 questions asked before you get engaged. My wife and I went through a number of the questions in this book and found it really helpful. I think I bought this for like $6 used on Amazon. What do we have over here? This book, Attached, is absolutely fabulous if you want to learn about relationships and attachment styles. Hold Your Kids by Gabor Mate is great about parenting and kind of like thinking about child rearing, which is not something I've done yet, but something I want to prepare for. Oh, this book, The American Hookup, by Dr. Lisa Wade, is about kind of like hookup culture on campus. I actually interviewed her on the channel a while back. At least for me, books are a really great way to receive information. I find that they're really easy to go back to. Like, there's a book called Your Money or Your Life, and I've clearly like gone through, I like to make markings in my books. I often find myself having conversations with books where I'm writing in the margins, or I'm disagreeing, or I'm agreeing with, or I'm adding my own points in this age of the internet where like it's becoming harder and harder, at least for me, to determine what's real, what's not real, what's AI, like all of that stuff. Just having a fucking physical book by Wendell Berry or whatever is just so awesome. All right, let's get these guys back on the shelf. Bottom shelf here is gonna be just kind of classic nonfiction. Filmmaking is gonna have some tall books, so they need to go up there. And then okay, so with that empty shelf, I think I'm gonna put some of my favorite classic novels over there. So Les Mis, #1 classic. Catch-22, Kurt Vonnegut's Bluebird. I feel like it's not talked about that much, but it's so good. Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. I'm also gonna do Gatsby. I'm gonna do To Kill a Mockingbird and 1984. I would say that's a pretty good stack. It just feels so much better when things are organized. Love that feeling. Reading for me has been a savior throughout my life. Like, I'm not a particularly smart guy. At least I don't think so. I've had friends who can like barely study and then get an A on the test, and that was never me. I was always someone who had to work really hard and have flashcards and notes and, you know, really put my time and energy into it to, you know, kind of pass. I've realized I can improve my ability to think through reading. Books contain information and concepts and ideas, but in a way that's kind of different from podcasts or documentaries or other mediums. I find that books make me think. That when I read a book, I'm forced to consider the perspectives. Whether it's a work of nonfiction, something written by like Malcolm Gladwell, or a work of fiction, like Les Miserables, Both of those books are making me think in different ways. They're pushing my brain to tackle the problems that I'm facing in the world. I find myself taking the concepts that I'm consuming from these books and applying them to my life. And perhaps where on the internet we're kind of forced to think about what is the most present, pressing thing that happened in the last 12 hours. Like, this book was originally published in 1862, and there are still core human truths that I am pulling out of reading the story of Jean Valjean. In the same way, even something that's much more contemporary, like this Malcolm Gladwell book, came out in 2013. That's 12 years ago, right? Like, what I find when I'm reading is I'm not focused on just the current news cycle, but a deeper sense of what is true, what is real. Reading gives me frameworks to interpret and understand the world. If I want access to ideas that are not part of the current cultural narrative, I read. If I want to think for myself, I read. If I want to be a smarter person, I read. Reading is one of the most powerful, best-kept secrets that's available to us all of the time. I'm really liking how it's looking in here.